When he was just 8 years old, Gabriel asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. They weren't about math, they weren't about science, but about purpose. Why am I here? Why do I feel things that no one else feels? Nobody knew how to answer. Some smiled with pity, others just looked away. He grew up with the feeling that he carried something that the world had not yet named. At 12, he began to notice that whenever he tried to shine, something went wrong. When he showed his talents, ridicule came. When he expressed his intuition, he received contempt. Still, something inside him refused to go away. It was as if a silent voice said, "Keep going. This is all for a reason." Lui. But what makes the world react with such resistance to certain individuals, even though they have done nothing wrong? CTE neuropsychological studies show that only 1% of the world's population has what scientists call active spiritual intelligence, a combination of heightened empathy, unusual intuition, and inexplicable resilience. These people see patterns where others see chaos. They feel truths that have not yet been said. And most of the time they are dismissed as too sensitive or weird. What if your constant suffering, your feeling of not belonging, and the challenges that never seem to cease are not punishments? What if they are silent proof that you carry something that the whole world tries to hide from you? You are not here by chance. You were selected, without even knowing it, to be different. And it is exactly this difference that bothers so many people. Because your presence breaks the invisible codes of conformity, let's be direct. The world does not persecute the weak. That would be a waste of time. The world attacks those who have something real, a strength that cannot be bought, imitated, or destroyed. From an early age, you faced exclusion, distrust, and often felt as if life was trying to crush you. But what no one told you is that it's not punishment. It's a sign. You may have been underestimated, silenced, or even discredited. But behind it all, there is an undeniable truth. You were always noticed, even when they tried to pretend you were invisible. They saw your energy before you learned to name it. They detected your potential before you believed in it. How many times have you felt like the people closest to you seemed to turn on you for no reason? How many times have you felt that success seemed to slip out of your hands just when everything was about to go right? These are not random coincidences. They are standards, and patterns, when they are repeated too much, stop being good or bad luck. They become messages. You were targeted not because you are fragile, but because there is something in you that destabilizes what is false. Your soul vibrates at a frequency that threatens structures based on lies, manipulation, and control. Therefore, everything that tries to silence you, distract you, or divert you comes with force. Because if you really wake up, nothing stops you. And that scares. They tried to convince you that you were ordinary. They threw you into cycles that exhaust you, people that consume you, systems that reduce you, everything so that you would never look in the mirror and see what you really are. But do you know what is more powerful? You are still here. And if you're reading or listening to this now, it's no accident. It's because the time has come to question everything, including the narratives you accepted as truth. You were not made to live in silence. You were shaped to question, confront, transform. Have you ever noticed how certain people just can't stand your presence, even if you don't say anything? This happens because your energy carries a true frequency, and the truth destabilizes those who live in a facade. The chosen one does not need to scream to be heard. Its very existence bothers, challenges, and causes ruptures. And that's exactly why you've been attacked so many times. They never feared their mistake. They feared their awakening. Now you need to ask yourself a simple question. How many times have you swallowed your own light just to be accepted by those who don't even know what true love is? Maybe now it makes sense why nothing was easy, because it always felt like something was stopping you from just fitting in. The truth? You were not born to shape yourself. You were born to lead, even if alone at first. This is just the first part of what you need to remember. What comes next will prove to you that nothing, absolutely nothing, was by chance, and that the time to accept who you are has arrived. Are you ready to continue? CTA. You were not chosen by the world, but by the invisible. There are people who seem to go through life as if following an invisible script. They do not fit into the standards, nor do they feel complete in the ready-made answers that the world offers. From an early age, they know that something about them is different, but they still don't know what. Maybe you are one of those people. Perhaps without realizing it, you are carrying a calling that you never asked for, but that you cannot ignore. Have you ever noticed how some children demonstrate wisdom disproportionate to their age? In 1979, psychologist Ellen Winner coined the term spiritually gifted children to describe young people who display deep empathy, an intuitive connection with nature, and complex existential questions before they even learn to write. This perception, ignored for a long time, is now reinforced by studies that indicate that less than 2% of the population is born with what experts call awakened energetic consciousness. These individuals are not better than others. They are different. They do not seek fame or power. What they carry within themselves cannot be learned in schools, nor transferred from generation to generation as a material inheritance. It's something that came with them. And this is exactly what confuses the world around. Have you ever felt out of place, even among people who love you? Ever feel like no one really understands your pain, your dreams, or your visions? This is not imagination. It is a reflection of a soul that was separated from the beginning for a purpose that goes beyond common logic. History is full of examples of figures who carried this invisible sign. Moses, in the 13th century BC, was left in the Nile River as a baby, in a basket, to escape persecution by Pharaoh Ramses II. He grew up not knowing who he really was, until he heard his true identity in the fire of a burning bush. Jesus, in the 1st century AD, was born in a stable, was rejected by his own city, and only began his public mission at the age of 30. Both were marked by early rejection, isolation, and doubt, the same elements that appear in the lives of many who have a profound mission but have not yet awakened to it. This pattern repeats itself because there is a spiritual logic behind the chaos. Those who are chosen to make an impact almost always start out being ignored. This isn't cruelty, it's preparation. The invisible does not call those who are ready. He molds it until it is. Have you ever noticed how every time you feel like you're about to take a big step, an unexpected loss comes your way? An unexplained conflict, a wave of tiredness that seems to come from nowhere. This is no coincidence, it's interference. The closer you get to your mission, the stronger the resistance manifests itself, because there are forces that prefer you distracted, tired, and resigned, rather than awake, lucid, and in control of your gift. But let's make something clear. Being chosen is not a title, it's a responsibility. It's not about feeling special, it's about understanding that you are designed to change something, inside or outside, and that comes with a price. The price of doubt, the price of loneliness, the price of walking down paths where no one has gone before. In 1997, a study from Harvard University observed that people with high spiritual sensitivity were more likely to suffer intense existential crises, but they also had a greater capacity for emotional regeneration. This means that, despite the falls, they always get back up, because what's inside them doesn't break, it just silences until the next call. And that's why, even after everything they threw at you, you're still here. You may not have understood everything you went through. You may have asked countless times, why me? But perhaps the right question has always been, why not me? Look at your history. See the falls, the pains, the new beginnings. There is a pattern there, a cycle that pushed you to the bottom, not to drown you, but so that you could find your deepest root there. Because some gifts are only born when everything superficial dies. The world will keep trying to fit you into boxes. It will keep telling you that you need to be like the others. But deep down, you know you never fit into these formulas. You feel there is something more, something that pulses in the chest even when everything seems to fall apart. That something is what makes you resist. It's what keeps you restless. It's what makes you silently dangerous to a system that feeds on conformity. That's why, even without understanding, they attack you. Because its essence bothers the world that lives in facade, so don't wait for permission, don't seek approval. The invisible has already recognized you. Now all you need to do is accept what you have always been, a bearer of something that cannot be explained, only experienced. And what comes next? A choice. Either you keep trying to be like everyone else, or you really start being who you were born to be. CTA. When nothing goes right, even with all your effort, the invisible siege of the chosen. Have you ever had the feeling that, no matter how hard you try to do everything right, something keeps going wrong at the last moment? As if there were an invisible barrier between you and what seems so close, this feeling is not an exaggeration, and it's definitely not bad luck. There's a silent gear working behind the scenes in your life, and it doesn't want you to find out what's behind what you call failure. The name of it, subtle manipulation and energetic pursuit. Contrary to what many people think, persecution does not always involve shouting threats or declared enemies. Sometimes it manifests itself in a discreet, strategic way. It comes disguised as opportunities that divert you, of friendships that empty, of relationships that get sick, of invitations that are delayed, and mainly from internal voices that are not yours, but that convince you that you are not worth enough. These interferences happen because you are perceived as a risk, a factor that can destabilize entire structures, not physical structures, but emotional, social, and spiritual systems that have been set up to keep people like you in a state of dormancy. Programmed energy interference. In 2022, the University of Edinburgh published a study on the effects of human energy on collective behavior. The results showed that people with a greater capacity for emotional influence, those who change the environment just with their presence, provoke intense reactions, positive or negative, in the surrounding groups. This means that its existence, in itself, already causes discomfort in systems that operate in automatic mode. You disrupt what was working in the pilot, and this, for those who profit from ignorance, is a serious problem. Emotional distraction systems. The most effective manipulation does not happen with chains or bars. It happens with distractions, social networks, constant comparison, excessive work, emotional addictions. All of this acts like a veil, keeping your mind away from what is essential. The World Health Organization, in a 2023 report, identified that 78% of young adults feel constantly anxious and disconnected from their own purpose. This is no coincidence. It's strategy. A distracted individual does not listen to their intuition. An anxious spirit cannot discern what is truth and what is deception. Repetitive patterns of sabotage. Have you ever noticed how some situations seem to repeat themselves in your life, with different characters, but almost identical scripts? This is called structural sabotage cycle. This is when external and internal forces align to keep you stagnant, not because you are not capable, but because your expansion represents a risk to everything that was built to limit you. And this is old. In the story, we see how figures who carried inner light were attacked by that which was invisible to the eyes of others. Nikola Tesla, in 1901, had his projects confiscated and discredited for touching discoveries that could free humanity from the monetized energy system. Joan of Arc, in 1431, was executed for hearing an inner voice that challenged the political and religious control of the time. Jesus, in his time, was rejected by his own community, accused and crucified, not out of gratuitous hatred, but because his presence was a living threat to the structure of the lie. The pattern repeats itself, using people close to you as an attack tool. It is common for the deepest attacks to come from those who are closest. And this happens for a strategic reason. The emotional impact is greater. It's not that these people are malicious. They are often being used without realizing it. It's as if they were antennas that capture an opposing frequency and end up becoming instruments of deviation in your life. If you feel like those who should support you are the ones who hurt you the most, understand this isn't about you being difficult to love. It's about your energy being too strong to be manipulated easily. And this bothers those who still live under the influence of system self-sabotage as a reflection of external control. Manipulation doesn't need to physically arrest you if it can make you disbelieve in yourself. The thought, "I am not enough," is the most effective code of spiritual containment. If you repeat this internally, the enemy has already won half the battle, and he didn't even need to show up. But here's the truth, no one told you. You were never weak. You were just convinced of it by voices that weren't yours. As long as you continue to believe that you need permission from others to flourish, you will continue to feed the cycle. But the moment you realize that this persecution only exists because you carry something uncontrollable, the game changes. It's not about being a victim, it's about seeing the scenario. And from that, act with conscience. Because one thing is certain, you are not being attacked for being lost. You are being attacked because you are closer than you think to remembering who you really are. Narrative depth and clarity. Do you want me to continue? CTA. When you embrace who you are, no one can stop you. There are moments when everything seems to fall apart at once. Friendships that break without explanation, opportunities that evaporate, trust that vanishes. And in the midst of this collapse, an uncomfortable question arises: is there something wrong with me? But what if the collapse is exactly the sign that something certain is about to emerge? The truth is that awakening your strength does not happen in comfort. It happens at the limit. The moment you decide to stop following the imposed flow and start listening to your own voice, the one you tried to silence for so long so as not to bother you, to fit in, to be accepted. Awakening is not a magical moment where everything aligns. It's a conscious choice, repeated every day, even when everything inside and outside of you tells you to give up. Recognition of personal strength. Have you ever noticed that even though you're tired, you always find a way to keep going? Even though you are hurt, you are the one who lifts others up. Even lost, it is your presence that brings direction to those around you. This is not just a personality trait, and active energy capacity. A survey published by Stanford Center on Compassion 2021 revealed that individuals with heightened awareness have a greater ability to regain emotional balance in challenging environments, even when they do not have support. They build resilience where others crumble. This force is silent but transformative, and many don't understand this because they confuse power with noise. But true power is stability in the midst of chaos. The problem is that you have learned to hide this power. From an early age, he was taught to believe that being different was wrong, that being intense was too much, that being sensitive was weakness. So you started building smaller versions of yourself, watered-down versions, all to fit into places that were never meant for you. But every time you limit yourself to please, you distance yourself from who you are. And the further you are from your essence, the harder it is to recognize yourself in the mirror. Emptiness appears, the apathy, the feeling that something is missing, and it really is you. Awakening, then, is not about becoming something else. It's about remembering what you were before you were shaped. You came with gifts that were not learned. You feel the truth by intuition. You capture intentions in silence. You perceive energy before you even hear words. These skills are not common, and that is precisely why they were discredited. If everyone had access to this level of awareness, entire structures of control would fall apart. That's why they taught you to doubt yourself. Because if you fully trusted what you feel, you wouldn't accept what is imposed. And if you don't accept control, you become a threat. Breaking the cycle of self-denial. Breaking through self-denial requires courage. It's easy to live pleasing, hidden in other people's expectations. It's difficult to stand up and say, I'm not going to erase myself anymore to make others comfortable. And here's the twist. The world only starts to respect you when you stop hiding, because you weren't made to be invisible. It was made to illuminate. See examples from history. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for defending his truth. When it came out, it was acclaimed worldwide as a symbol of resistance and justice. Frida Kahlo transformed her physical and emotional pain into revolutionary art. At a time when women could barely express themselves publicly, they didn't ask for permission to shine. They decided to shine even when the world tried to erase them. And that's exactly what you need to understand. No one will free you to be who you are. You need to authorize yourself. Awakening your potential is the greatest act of rebellion against a system that profits from your doubt. Don't wait to be ready, because readiness is born in doing. Don't expect conditions to be perfect, because they never will be. You are what creates the path. Self-knowledge as a spiritual weapon. The more you know yourself, the less manipulable you become. When you know your worth, no one else sets your price. When you understand your limits, no one will surpass you anymore. When you recognize your brilliance, no one else turns off your light. And that doesn't mean arrogance. It means alignment. You begin to walk with conviction, not because you have all the answers, but because you know who you are. And that's enough. You've spent years trying to adjust. Years of blaming yourself for being too intense, too sensitive, too lonely. But what if the too much you carry is exactly what the world needs? What if your strength lies not in being accepted, but in becoming undeniable? This is the moment when you choose. Continue pretending to be small, or accept that your greatness was already written before you were even born. And the only question left now is, are you willing to become everything you've always been without apologizing for it? CTA. Isolation is not punishment. It's called undercover. There is a moment in the life of every chosen one when the silence becomes deafening. Friends disappear, conversations empty, presence in groups feels disconnected, and what used to make sense suddenly doesn't anymore. It's as if the whole world had turned its back on you, and you were left in a dark room, trying to understand where you got lost. But what if you didn't get lost? What if, in fact, it was being removed from places it no longer should be? Loneliness, as painful as it may seem, is not the end. It is the necessary gap between who you were and who you need to become. Often, dismissal is not a consequence of an error. It's a preparation mechanism. When the invisible realizes that you are ready for something greater, it removes what keeps you stuck in the ordinary. Strategic withdrawal. In the wild, the eagle is known for its ability to fly higher than any other bird. But what few know is that throughout life, it goes through a process called renewal, where it completely isolates itself for around 150 days, loses its feathers, beak and claws, and only then is it reborn stronger. It's an inevitable cycle. If she doesn't isolate herself, she dies. Spiritually, the same happens with those who have been called to great things. Emotional withdrawal, the lack of support, and the emptying of bonds are not failures, they are stages. The mission requires clarity, and clarity is born in silence. In 2020, the University of California conducted a study of more than 200 people who experienced long periods of solitude. The conclusion was surprising. 81% of them reported that even after the initial discomfort, this solitary time resulted in self-understanding, reinvention, and increased self-confidence. In other words, distancing, when embraced, becomes a path to transformation. Separation before revelation. Every great leader at some point needed to walk alone, not as a punishment, but as a passage. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before freeing his people. Buddha retreated for years before achieving enlightenment. Jesus isolated himself in the desert for 40 days before beginning his mission. The same pattern is repeated with those who carry a calling. Recollection comes before manifestation, because while you are surrounded by noise, opinions, and distractions, you cannot hear your own direction, and only those who listen can in fact lead others. Have you ever felt like when you needed someone the most, that's exactly when they all disappeared? This absence, as unfair as it may seem, was a cleansing. People who couldn't walk with the version of you that's about to emerge had to leave. And the higher your destiny, the leaner the circle that accompanies you will be. You are not being rejected, it is being realigned. But there is an essential detail. Solitude only fulfills its purpose when you stop resisting it. As long as you view silence as the enemy, it weakens you. When you welcome him as a master, he shapes you. Common mistake, trying to fit in again for fear of being alone. It is at this stage that many give up. They seek comfort in old connections, return to toxic relationships, or immerse themselves in empty distractions, all to escape the feeling of being alone. But going back at this point is like breaking the cocoon before the butterfly completes its metamorphosis. You compromise the flight. Solitude is a laboratory of the soul. It is in silence that you discover what you really think, what you really feel, what you want to create. It is in this environment that your internal voice, previously drowned out by external noise, finally gains volume. And when that voice is heard again, you regain your sovereignty. The world values the collective, but the soul awakens in introspection. You were removed from the environment not to be punished, but to be restored. And this restoration does not happen among crowds. It happens in the dark, in doubt, in vulnerability. Only those who face their own shadow can authentically recognize their light. You are not late. You are being prepared. The silence that surrounds you now will teach you more than 1,000 pieces of advice. The absence of those you thought were indispensable will make room for those who were truly destined to walk with you. The pain of separation will reveal layers of your identity that you never knew existed. You are not lonely, you are being refined, and when the time is right, you will be repositioned. Only this time, you won't beg for space anymore. You will be the space. Those who don't understand you today, tomorrow will remember who you have become, and you will know that everything was worth it, including the days when you cried alone, thinking that no one saw you, but the invisible has always seen you. And he never left you alone. KTA. Now that you know, the choice is yours. Did you get this far? Then you already know the truth. You are not fragile, nor random, nor the result of chance. You carry a strength that has never been erased, only muffled. For years, they told you to shut up, shape up, follow rules that weren't even yours. Everything so that you would never realize what you always had. But now, there's no more pretending. What makes you a target is the same thing that makes you invincible. your identity. What many called a weakness was actually part of its activation code. The pain you endured was not punishment, it was preparation. The loneliness he experienced was not abandonment, it was training. You have learned to survive in hostile environments, recovering without support, believing in yourself even when no one else did, and that formed you. Not to be like everyone else, but to lead when no one else knows what to do. The world tried to keep you stuck with the same questions. Why doesn't anything work out for me? Why does everyone leave me? Why do I never feel like I'm enough? But now, it's time to change the questions. What am I going to do with everything I've been through? Who will benefit from my strength? How can I use my past as a weapon, not a wound? You know enough. You've seen too much to go back to living as if you didn't know. Cycles don't break on their own. Chains don't magically come off. It's a decision, it's action, and it starts now. Don't wait for anyone else to recognize you to stand up. Whoever rejected you at first probably won't applaud your advancement. Anyone who doubted you will continue to distrust you. And that's okay. You don't need acceptance from those who have always tried to diminish you. It needs yours. The next step does not depend on a divine sign, a special message, or a miraculous push. The next step depends on you accepting that you are ready. Because it is. You were taken from places where you no longer fit. You were faced with situations that emptied you. He was forced to walk along paths that no one understood, and all of this had a reason, to prepare you for this moment. Now, either you move forward, or you repeat it all over again. There is no more middle ground. There is no more room for stalling. If you continue to postpone your transformation, the world will continue to lose an essential piece. You, in your complete version. Humanity doesn't need more people hiding. It needs those who have the courage to be light, even in dark places. It needs people who are not afraid to be different, to make trouble, to shake up structures. And that's what you do. You destabilize what is false. You illuminate what was hidden. You carry what many pretend to have. But all of this only has value when it is used. Idle power rots. Force that is not expressed turns against you. Ignored mission becomes a burden. The blunt truth is this. Either you use everything you've experienced as a springboard, or you carry it as an anchor. You can continue to seek validation. You can continue waiting for the right moment. You can hold yourself hostage to fear, but don't expect a different result if you continue choosing the same paths. Or you can get up now. With what you have, with whoever is left, with the truth it carries, because you don't need any more preparation. You need more courage. The world is full of empty voices trying to teach what they have never experienced. But your voice is different. It was shaped by real falls, by real losses, by battles that almost no one saw. And that's why it carries weight. It carries impact. It carries authenticity. You don't have to be perfect. You need to be honest. You don't have to have everything. It needs to have purpose, and you have. So stop asking for permission to live what is already yours by essence. You were marked to break, not repeat. It was prepared to build, not just repair. It was set apart to command, not just follow. They already know who you are. Now all you need to do is behave like one, because the next chapter of your story will not be written with regrets, but with attitude. And whoever tried to bury you will have to watch you blossom. CTA.